Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Winning in Life Without Losing Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Pete. I'm so glad that you're joining me today as we are going to talk about the one thing that every healthy team culture must have. But before we get into that, I just want to kind of bring you up to date on a few things going on here. I am working right now, as of the recording of this episode, on kind of refining some of the topics and influences that I'm going to be speaking into. And so, over the course of the next few months or so, you may notice that we're talking less and less about some topics and more about other topics. And I'm just inviting you to go on that journey with me as we learn more about what's really important to you, honestly, as the listener and viewer of this podcast, of the content that I'm putting out. I am very excited about some new Enneagram content that I have coming, but that is one of the topics that I think I'm going to kind of streamline away from, not necessarily away, but more. I'm going to use the Enneagram as a tool for creative processes, is kind of where I'm leaning right now. And I'm just kind of taking back the curtain a little bit, letting you see a little bit into my world and the process that I'm going through right now of kind of refining those things. I think the Enneagram is wildly important, and I think it's a great tool for us to understand who God has uniquely made us to be. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more with each Enneagram type over the next few months. But I'm more so going to focus on using that as a tool to help us with our creativity and with our creative processes. And so I'm super excited to be able to kind of narrow that focus down for y'all, as I've committed at the beginning of this year to kind of tackling these five topics and seeing kind of what fleshes out and what gains the most interest for you as the watcher and consumer and listener of this content. So I'm really excited to get into that. And if you want to follow along with me on that journey, you can follow along with me at Dustin Peed on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. Apparently, Twitter is called X now. I don't know if you knew that, but that's a thing. Um, so I'm on all those places at Dustin Peed. YouTube is at Dustin like dash Peed, but I'm there. And then anyway, if you can find all the links and all the stuff that I'm doing, and you can kind of see some of the stuff I'm refining, it's you can find that as well at dustinpeed.com. If you're interested in talking more about how I can help you with your creative teams or your personal creativity or creative process, I would love to speak with you. Go to dustinpeed.com, click on the Let's Talk button. Now, let's get into today. I'm super excited because, again, one of the topics that I've been focusing on since the beginning of this year is culture. And I've had to explain a little bit of that because when I say culture, not everybody knows immediately that I'm talking about team culture. They might think I'm talking about, sports or the arts or entertainment or, what's going on in pop culture in the world, kind of that type of thing. But what I'm really talking about is team culture and team dynamics and how to be able to have and enjoy the most healthy team culture and team dynamics possible within your organization. And so over the last few months, I've been working really hard with a business partner of mine, Blake, on launching a new culture consulting agency called the Culture Base. And so I would just invite you, if you're interested in what I'm talking about here today or anything that you've heard me talk about on team culture, I'm going to start streamlining a lot of that stuff, not all of it, but a lot of that stuff through the Culture Base. And so you can find that at theculturebase.com. It's BASE.com, theculturebase.com, or you can find us on all the socials as well at the Culture Base. But today I want to dive right in and talk to you about what I believe is the one thing that every healthy creative, or one thing that every healthy culture, team culture, must have. So, look, we've all been there. We've been in a room full of people that we pretend to know. We're in a meeting that we don't need to be in, but we're too insecure to speak up about it. The pressure, the awkwardness, the unaddressed elephants in the room, they're all signs of unhealthy team culture. However, I think there's one thing that must be present in order to kind of break this mold and to get out of this rut of this stale, unhealthy team culture. I believe that one thing is something that I try to model in every piece of content that I give you, even just today, of being able to kind of peel back the curtains a little bit and see what's going on in my world, and be able to kind of tell you what's going on in my world and what's going on in my head, and how I'm looking to kind of refine some of the topics that I'm talking about. Before anything else, I think that you need vulnerability. And I know when I say that, there's a lot of people that immediately tense up and they go, no, I can't do that. I can't let my guard. It's got to be something else. It can't be vulnerability. Listen, I'm telling you right now, unless you can let out just a little bit of your true, unique, authentic self in and amongst your team, you're not going to have the culture that you want. It's no longer enough to just have foosball tables or unlimited PTO to have a good team culture. You have to be willing to open yourself up a little bit to others in the workplace. Listen, there is nothing that breeds trust and a sense of unity faster than someone who will speak up about what they are genuinely feeling without fear of repercussions. Let me just say that again. There's nothing that breeds trust and a sense of unity faster than someone who will speak up about what they are genuinely feeling without fear or repercussions. Now, here's what this doesn't mean. This doesn't mean that you get to finally walk into your boss's office and tell them exactly how you feel about them. There's still boundaries, there's still org charts, there's still authority lines that we have to respect and go through, and chains of command and processes that we have to follow. So this is not a license to be a jerk. This is a license to be yourself. And maybe if you find that yourself is a jerk, maybe that's something new that you found out and you need to work on that. But if you can learn to balance humility and mercy and grace with just a little bit of vulnerability, I can promise you it'll change your team culture dynamic very, very quickly. We can't go off on every employee just in the name of, hey, I'm just being real here, just trying to be vulnerable with you for a second. But we got to do it with tact and humility and grace, like I talked about. We got to begin to break down the walls that so many of teams, that so many teams have up and keep them from thriving. And I can't really connect. I can't really go to battle with you. And I often think that we kind of underestimate the time and the value that we're putting into our workplace. This is somewhere that you're going to spend a good portion of your life. And if you haven't woke up to that reality already, I invite you to. And wouldn't you want to make that a place that you actually enjoy being in? And not just for entertainment's sake, but for community's sake, for your own livelihood, for your own well being, for your own mental health, for your physical health, for your emotional state. Once you want to be a part of a team that cares deeply about one another and lifts each other up, celebrates when each other is having a win, and mourns with those who mourn. It sounds something like we've heard in scripture before, right? So here's what I'm asking. I'm just asking, what is one thing that you can open up about at your next meeting to set the tone in the right way? Maybe, maybe it's an admission of guilt. Some of the easiest ways of being able to kind of break down walls is to put a little bit of ownership on yourself and go say, look, I'm willing to take some pressure off the situation here by admitting my faults. I'm going to be vulnerable enough and honest and transparent enough with the room right now to say that some of this is my fault and here's how I've contributed to it. Perhaps it's a moment of genuine pride that you felt during the latest win that your team experienced. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation with your teammates that you've been hoping someone else will bring up. Let me just say that again. If it's a difficult conversation that you need to have with someone on your team that you're hoping someone else will bring up, you already know that you're the person that needs to do it. So just go in with humility and grace and vulnerability. Own what you need to own and say, listen, I'm willing to be vulnerable here and put myself out there because I care about you and I care about our team. Listen, folks, it starts with you. It starts with you. You must be willing to be vulnerable. I'm not saying be 100% vulnerable, not showing all your deepest, darkest secrets. Maybe you'll get there with a few people on your team, but you have to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable. or your team's culture will always be restricted from being the best it could be. It'll always have a wall, it will always have a barrier of what it could be. And so I just challenge you, what's one thing that you can open up about this week with your team? If it's your next one-on-one, if it's your next team meeting, as you're starting the meeting and everybody's kind of chit-chatting and we haven't really gotten to the agenda yet, what's one way that you can just kind of open up and say, hey, y'all, can I just share something with you in my life? Something that was really amazing that happened this past weekend, something really amazing that's coming up in my life, something really difficult that I'm walking through right now. Can I just share that? But I feel like I just need to share. I just need to get this off my chest. Hey, can I just tell you that I really appreciate y'all as a team? Can I just be open and honest to say that I'm really struggling to be here right now, and I'd love to talk through that with you. Any of those things will go a long way. Read the room. Obviously, you don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm telling you that vulnerability is the one thing that every healthy team culture must have. I'm so glad that y'all joined me this week. If I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you're watching on YouTube, I would love for you to like, subscribe, ring the bell. If you're listening to this on any audio podcast platform, a 5-star review would go a long way in helping me get this content out further. Drop a comment if there's anything that you'd like me to discuss further about. If there's any questions you have about vulnerability, I'm open. You can go to dustinp.com, click on the Let's Talk button, and I would love to chat with you there. Cannot wait to be with you next week on Winning in Life Without Losing Your Mind podcast.